Hi, everybody. How are you today? I am Marianne Stante, and this is Drop In with Marianne for Brock University. I am an ESL instructor. That means I teach English as a second language at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Now, many of you who are watching already go to Brock, but we might have some new people who live further away. And I hope this drop-in series will help you with some of your grammar questions, because I find that sometimes students just need a little bit extra help in order to grasp a grammar concept that they perhaps struggle with. So let's get to it, and let's do that here. This is Drop In with Marianne, and today we are going to continue with prepositions. Yesterday, we talked about prepositions of place, time, and a little bit movement, but mostly place and time. Now, you know prepositions. Prepositions are the little words in sentences that make the subject, the nouns, the verbs all connect together to make sense. And that is the key. The reason why grammar is so important in any language is because it helps you become an effective communicator. Everybody wants to be an effective communicator. Otherwise, what's the point of talking or communicating? If somebody doesn't understand you, there's no point to talking. And we don't want that. That's the whole reason we learn the language correctly. Now, one thing I want to say about grammar is not just confined to a grammar class. Grammar is in every subject. Your reading, your writing, your listening, your speaking, it's in all of them. And so grammar permeates all of these subjects. And that's why I think it's so important to be able to incorporate grammar in all of your classes, because you have to use the grammar in all of your classes. Now, with prepositions, they can sometimes give students a bit of a hard time. Why? Because they're confusing. For example, the word in. In can be used to represent a place. It can be used with time. It can be used with movement or direction, as in into. It can be a little bit confusing. Same with on, at. For prepositions of place, we use by. There are so many. And I think this is where people struggle. But you know what? That's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you can't learn it. It just means, and remember this, the more you practice, the faster you will learn. The more you practice, the faster you will learn. Now, what do I mean by practice? I don't mean just sit there and read books and study and use your dictionary and study all your vocabulary. No, I mean practice. Practice your speaking. Practice your listening. Start reading on a more regular basis. Start reading books that you are interested in, not books that you have to study. But read novels, read things that are interesting to you, magazines, newspapers. There are so many options. Now, when we are talking about prepositions, that's why I tell you guys to practice, because prepositions can only be remembered mostly. Of course, you can remember it if you practice memory work, but you're going to remember it more if you use it. Talk to your homestay families, talk to your friends, talk to your teachers. The best students always talk. And I'll tell you, as a teacher, I love it when my students want to talk to me. Talk to your teacher during office hours. Talk to your teacher after class or during class. Teachers love that, and people do a much better job learning a language when they practice. Now, The reason I'm going over prepositions is because I got an email last week from somebody who really wanted to understand how to use prepositions correctly. Now, it's not impossible, but it's a little bit tricky. So, Shannon, this is for you. Now, I want to talk about prepositions of movement or direction. Prepositions of movement. There are so many prepositions that we use for place, time, movement. But today I would like to go over movement with you because I think that it is easy once you grasp it. And there are so many. Let's start with the easiest one. Over. Over. Everybody knows the word over. Now, I have my Brock jar and I have a marker. I'm going to use these as my realia, my examples. Over. The pen goes over the jar. The marker goes over the jar. Now, another one I want to talk about is around. Around. The pen moves around the jar. The pen moves around the jar. Now, I like using these prepositions because we need them to give directions. If somebody asks you for directions, you have to be prepared to tell them. But more importantly, if you need directions, you need to be able to ask the question, and you have to be able to understand what directions the person is giving you. So let's look at another one. Into. Now, you guys know in, and you probably know into, but when we're talking about movement, into the jar. Into. The marker goes into the jar. Now, yes, marker can also be in the jar. That is true. The marker can be in the jar. Or you can put the marker into the jar. And that's what we use when we're talking about movement. Now, another phrase I want you to know is out of. Out of. You might hear, get out of the car. We don't say get out the car. You're missing of. Get out of the car. That is movement. Take the marker out of the jar. Out of. Take the marker out of the jar. And that's another one. What could be another one? Away from. Move the marker away from the jar. Now it's away from. It's far away. Let's put it way back here. Away from. Now, if you are talking about movement, you want to say move away from the car. Move away from the fire. Move away from that tree. Another preposition of movement that we use, and I think this one is pretty easy, but it can be tricky, is through. Through. What does through mean? Well, we use it as in I go through the tunnel. I'll go over the bridge and through the tunnel. What does through mean? Through means if you have a cylinder or a tube, something with a space that you can see through. If you go through, that means you go in and you come out the other side. That is through. Now you can think things through, but that's different than movement, isn't it? When we are driving through a tunnel, that means we go into the tunnel and we come out the other side. We go through the tunnel. And through is very common when you are giving directions. Now, these are all prepositions that tell us the placement of something or the direction that it is going in. Do you know two other very easy prepositions of movement? Up, down. Up, down. Those are also prepositions of movement. Another one, across from. That's another one that you would use when you are giving directions. Across from. Now, how would I say this? Well, I might say the hospital is across from the parking lot. The airport is across from the hotel. Across from. Now, we can't say across the hotel or across the airport. Where is the hotel? Across the airport? No, it is across from the airport. You must have from. That is key. Now, another preposition of movement could be next to. Next to. Where is the store? The store is next to the school. Now, I've given you some prepositions of movement, and there are many. But what I'd like to do is practice some examples. So let's say we're using the word, and here's one more, past. Past. Go past the store. Now, what does that mean? Well, if this is my jar, and this is my marker, you don't go to the jar. You go past the jar. That means the jar is not the destination. This is over here. So you move past the jar and you continue to the destination. Now, of course, using the jar and walking is a little bit silly. So let's use a reasonable example. Go past the hospital to the parking lot. If this is the hospital, you don't stop at the hospital. The hospital is not the destination. You go past the hospital to the parking lot. Now, let's use that as in an example. If somebody said, can you tell me where I pay for parking? Yes. Go past the parking lot to the kiosk. Go past the parking lot to the kiosk. What about over? How do I get to school? Go past the store and over the bridge. Then turn right, go up the hill and into the parking lot. Whoa, that had a lot of prepositions in it, but you get the idea. You are able to use many prepositions in a sentence if you have to. That's okay. And you know what? It's effective communication. Now, what about another example? How do I get to the bridge? Oh, that's easy. Go away from the park. Go away from the park. Go through the tunnel and go out of the tunnel. And what you are looking for, the bridge, is across from the bakery. Now, I used a lot of different prepositions there too. It works. You can use multi-prepositions in a sentence if you want to. That makes it okay. When you are giving directions, it's probably easier to use more than one preposition in a sentence because otherwise you're going to use a lot of very small sentences. But it takes practice. And how do we practice? We speak. We use the vocabulary that we learn and we practice. So what I want you guys to do is I have gone over prepositions of place, prepositions of time, and prepositions of movement. I want you to practice using these prepositions to make your communication more effective. You know what else you can do? Practice giving directions. You might say, who am I giving directions to? You can pretend. Look it up. Look up a map and practice giving directions around town using a map of Brock University, a map of St. Catharines, a map of Niagara Falls. Any kind of map of a city or an area or a place will do. Find a map of Brock University. Practice using giving directions. Practice using your prepositions of movement and place and time. Just practice making sentences. Now, if you have any other questions or concerns pertaining to grammar or any of your classes, you can always send me an email at the email address on the screen underneath and let me know what you would like me to go over on Drop In with Marianne. I am here to help you with your grammar. I'm here to make you feel more comfortable talking. And remember, you guys, practice. Practice is key. And when we all get to go back to school finally, and we're all in the classroom, we can talk all we want. It will be fantastic. And for those of you who have listened to Drop In with Marianne, I'm going to be listening for prepositions. It has been a really great day. I hope you enjoy yourself, enjoy the sunshine, and practice your English. See you next time. Bye.